you'll be here for a while. Sipping on that herbal tea, feeling alive in the zone with Danny where the good times thrive. Rise and shine, let's break down the walls. Knowledge is power, let's answer the calls. From fitness to wellness, we're keeping it tight. Danny's got your back, bringing wisdom to light. Join the movement, let your heart resonate. This is the hour, don't hesitate. Living like a glow, we're shining so bright. Tune into the vibes that'll take you to new heights. Something like that. Have there, because we live on YouTube. What's going on, y'all? It's still early. All right. Oh, we over there too. What up with it? I love it. All right. We live on YouTube. We live on IG. We live on everywhere. Let's get it. All right. There we go. All right. You want to close that door when you can, Essence? And I'm about to go live. All right, welcome to another episode of the People's Healing Hour. I am your host, known in the streets and in the clinics as the People's Herbalist. I'm excited for another beautiful day, a beautiful Wednesday. In fact, after a weekend of gloominess on Memorial Day, I know that dampened a lot of barbecue plans and family gatherings, but I'm excited to be out here with y'all this morning as we discuss a really important topic. And I got my girl with me in the building. It's been a long time, but Essence, welcome back.
Peace, peace, peace.
It is really good to see you. It's good to have you back on air with me as we navigate a beautiful topic that's very important for folks to understand. And we have some guests that's going to be calling in that I'm happy to bring on today. Hold on. We have Rebecca and we have Trisha. All right. So hold on. Let me see. Is they on the lines right now? Hold on. Oh, not there. Not there. All right.
Call us back.
Call us back. Call us back. 212-650-6903. All right, hold up.
Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hi, Rebecca. How are you? No problem. All right, so you're live. Make sure you're not close to a radio source so there's no feedback. But we're happy to have you on today to talk about your story. But we also want to have some conversations about, really what it means to deal with and understanding vaccine injuries, vaccine injury claims, the process, what your story is, what you have endured thus far. So please, if you don't mind, tell the people where you're from and what's going on.
My story started in 2021. My daughter had a cold. She had a cough that lingered for longer than usual, and I was concerned. You need to put headphones on.
No, you're good.
So I took her to the Northwell Health Hospital, Glen Cove in Long Island, New York, and right away they decided this child's life is pretty much not worth it. She's got more dead than alive. So they started her in the ER with remdesivir without my consent. All she had was a cough. She had all normal vitals.
Wow.
That's where the nightmare started. And for my story, I'm here to tell people because it's not only my story. It's over 1 million Americans died in the hospital in the name of COVID. And when the truth came out, it wasn't COVID.
Wow. Wait, let's dive in here for some clarity. So your daughter, she was told that she had COVID, went to the hospital, and was given the medication remdesivir, and
Without consent.
without consent, right?
With this.
She did not want to go. She's a very healthy young lady. You know, again, all the vitamins, the food, you know, the natural medicines, everything. And she was functioning. She volunteered every week for Sunrise Assisted Living to feed the elderly. She was a joy, an absolute joy, a sweetheart. Everyone knew her. And that's where it started. It started in Glencoe Hospital, New York, a hospital. It used to be a safe hospital. Um, and from there, I don't know if you're going to tell the whole story or you want me to go piece by piece.
Well, yes, we do want to hear piece by piece so everyone can understand what you have gone through and what this process entailed because going into the hospital, having a medication given without consent, that medication causing some serious issues and the ramifications. What were the processes afterwards? Um,
So the decision was made in the ER to start Danielle. Usually people get 5 rounds of remdesivir. They gave Danielle 10 rounds of remdesivir. I was with her for the first 5 days. I live 8 minutes away, and I asked if I could please go home and shower. I started to get fever that night, but I will say we were in the room by ourselves for 3 days, from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday morning, I asked, could you please, what, you said you were only going to keep us here for 2 days, right? That's what they said in the ER. Just for 2 days observation, she had COVID pneumonia. There's no proof that she had COVID pneumonia in the medical records because we went through these medical records. They never got to swab her nose, but they are detailing that Danielle had a COVID test at Walgreens in Glencoe, which is untrue. So someone wrote that, and that's why it triggered, okay, she has COVID. Everything is an assumption in the medical records. It's the most horrific medical records you'd ever read. So on Monday, the pulmonologist came in the afternoon after requested what's going on. And he said, oh, we're going to bring her into the ICU for observation. He didn't say, Mom, we're going to bring her into the ICU because Danielle is getting worse, because anything. Because remember, she walked in, she was talking, she was laughing, she was eating. Everything was normal. It's just this cough. And if anyone knows, you know, this COVID or flu, it lingered. It had this lingering cough. Monday, we went into the ICU, and at that night she ate her lamb chops. They took her pajamas away. She didn't like that. And then they told her she had to use a bedpan. Now, Daniel's very independent. And now with all the research I learned, when you have pneumonia, if you do have pneumonia, you're supposed to be sitting up. You're supposed to be having breathing exercises. The doctor did none of that. Not completely changed to lie down. You have IV hooked up to her hand. And I'm thinking, well, they're treating her for pneumonia, which is, you know, people come out of the hospital with that. As a lay person, I had no idea, but they were giving her remdesivir, which slows the respiratory system down, and it causes kidney failure and organ failure. So as we go on and on, when I went home to take a shower, which they told me I could come back, they called my phone within 2 hours and tell me you can't come back unless you have a negative COVID test. She means that she was never alone, and she's scared to be alone, and she's locked up in this room with strangers who come in and out full of masks and full of PPE, no emotion, and she's crying for her mommy, and this is ADA violation. They never give her anyone. They started by tying her to the bed because she started pulling out her oxygen and pulling out her IV. She wants to go home. And they told me they had to restrain her. This was Wednesday. I started in morning. He asked me to put her on the ventilator. I told the doctor, no, she's not going on the ventilator. by Saturday morning, my ex-husband was there, and they're talking about the ventilator again. We need to put on the ventilator. Now, Danielle usually have an iPad. Danielle is communicating. When I was not allowed to be back in the hospital, I sent her iPad. They said, no, nothing could go up. I sent her balloons and flowers, nothing could go up. My husband was dropping everything off at the front desk and they were taking it up to the ICU. Now, all of a sudden, they bought everything. I said, could I see her on the iPad? No, the hospital iPad is not working. So there's no communication with Daniel and myself. You're talking about the child who's terrified. I would be terrified.
That is absolutely heartbreaking.
This is
And
an outrage.
yes, I can't believe that. And I believe we may have Trisha on the line now. Trisha, are you there? Good
Good
morning.
morning.
All right. For all the listeners, I want you guys to know that we have Trisha Lindsay, a New York attorney, a former educator, advocate for constitutional rights, civil liberties, and community justice. Very, very happy to have you on the show this morning. I believe you were raised in the Bronx. Trisha, is that correct?
Town baby.
She left the hospital, you know that it was flawed. They were just waiting for her to leave because she was pretty much the gatekeeper. You know, she was her guardian, Danielle's guardian, and ensuring that she was receiving the proper care. You know, as much as she could while she was there, and then everything that she Danielle did not want, and that Rebecca, you know, declined while she was there. They pretty much proceeded with administering everything that she had declined previously after once she left the hospital. I mean, they took no time. You know, they used the false narrative or false COVID test that had never occurred, positive COVID test from Walgreens that never occurred. There are no records of it. You know, and the records speak plainly to the treatment or lack of treatment that Danielle was subjected to in the hospital to the point where you know she had bruising on her face, you know, swelling on her face because they weren't turning her when they were supposed to, so they were leaving her face down at times for long periods of time. I mean, it's just it's almost like medical abuse to a certain, you know, to a certain degree. And so the not to a certain degree, it is medical abuse.
Fully.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so the recourse is holding them accountable in the court of law, courts of law, you know, and hoping to receive justice, you know, through that avenue and exposure. You know, lawsuits are great for holding parties accountable for breaking the law and for you know their actions, but the biggest side to this would be the accountability and the exposure side. You know, the exposure. This is not just about big dollars, and you know, this is not. It's, of course, there's funds that comes into play because when you bring a lawsuit, that's what it is, right? You're even
Right.
looking for a declaratory judgment where the court is issuing an order for the party to do something or to not do something. But then there's the other side, right? For damages, the harm, to be compensated for what Danielle went through and what Rebecca and her family has gone through. And so that's where the cost damages, the dollar amount comes in, right? The dollars come in. But the larger side to this for us and for Rebecca is the exposure. The exposure, exposing the hospital, exposing the doctors, so that the public, so that the world knows what took place and what they're doing. Northwell has a very large reach. Their arms are long, they're expansive, and they're growing more and more and more each day. And so it is important that you know on clients going into the hospital expecting to be cared for, expecting for their family members to be cared for, they need to be aware of what is actually happening and what is going on, you know, so that they are making informed decisions when they go into the hospital and know what to be aware of. And so that is, you know, a primary goal of this lawsuit.
I also think part of the education moving forward should be when you are barred and targeted and isolated like that, how do you move forward? Who do you reach out to for support and resources? Because
Right.
not being able to come back in the hospital during COVID is blanket wise understandable. However, how it happened in this situation was malicious. This is more than negligence. This is retaliatory.
Right.
And it's, dare I say, it's nothing short of murder at this point. It's an outrage.
Absolutely. Yep. Oh my
I'm
goodness.
like shaking right now.
All right.
This is disgusting.
Describe the impact, and it doesn't describe the actions and the what took place, you know. And so we have to be plain, and we have to be, you know, upfront and just very bold about what took place, so that people are aware it was murder. That the records speak to it. There's nothing else. There's no other way to explain it.
Right. No sugarcoating. And we're on WHCR 90.3 FM radio, the voice of Harlem. And staying true to that, we are a community based radio show in which we can talk and hear the people and share the stories of the people. And this is what we're doing today and discussing a very, very important topic for people to understand their rights and also understand what they can do in order to stay safe. You know, we go to the hospitals, we trust the medical establishment for providing care and helping us heal, but there are too many times and too many instances where people negligently isolate, remove the standard of care, or just honestly downright are just a nasty individual, and that leads to really terrible outcomes. So, you know, when we have the opportunity to share the stories today, we're talking about Danielle's story and her mother Rebecca and her journey from 2021 till now to still find the justice that is deserved. So we're using this platform on 90.3 FM radio to discuss this. So
WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
So when we have the opportunity to use this platform, this is what we're going to do it for. And let me be clear, all right? My opinions on the People's Healing Hour may not reflect the management or the institution in which this radio show is broadcasted from, but we are being true and honest and sharing the words of the people for the people so we can empower individuals for the future to be sure that instances like this do not continuously happen without somebody being held accountable.
And after that accountability, we need to know how to move forward. Pardon me. We need to hurdle. We need to know how to overcome these situations when they happen, like you said. So harm is reduced when it comes to outcomes. But let's talk about the layers because the outcome is just not, okay, I lost a loved one. Now I have a lawsuit and have to go through legal battles. It is biopsychosocial. You deal with it at home through grief and loneliness. You deal with it at work when your world changes. You deal with it physically almost. Like grief can make you ill. It's so layered. How you live your life completely changes after an event like this. And people need resources. So this is a major part of outreach work and advocacy work. And people need to understand how important it is not just doing the work for the community, but do this work for yourself, for your family. Learn how to navigate complex systems, or they will work you. And like Danny said, your outcomes will be not just disastrous. They'll shift your life in the worst ways. Your trajectory will be almost a 180.
Absolutely. And Rebecca, we want to give you the microphone again and an opportunity to share. Well, we went through the story, how this happened, but what were the next steps for you reaching out and getting in contact with Trisha?
Well, I didn't tell you the whole story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. Once they got me out, they put Danielle on the ventilator. And I will tell you, the reason why I agreed to it, I couldn't see my daughter. And I asked the doctor, I said, if this is your child, would you put her on a ventilator? And he said to me, yes. It's just for a couple of days, just to give her lungs rest. And this is consecutively the same story with everyone you speak to. Oh, we just need to put them on the ventilator for a couple of days. They never get off the ventilator. So within 2 days of putting my daughter on the ventilator, my daughter got a heart attack. They were overdosing her with all these heavy drugs and fentanyl, propofol, all these drugs, and have the ventilator on high. They never weaned it in all the charts. They never weaned the drugs down. They never weaned the ventilator down. In fact, they override medical alerts for the drugs that were given Danielle, to the point where when I did the autopsy on Danielle, her autopsy, fentanyl was at 53 when George Floyd was at 11. And I just want you to understand that George Floyd is a big man. My daughter was just 100 pounds. And in the hospital, she blew up with all the fluids and everything to almost 135 pounds. And they just abused my daughter over and over. They never told me Danielle got a heart attack until I was able to come back in the hospital 13 days later. I saw my daughter with bruises on her chin, bruises on her face. In the medical record, it said it was ulcers because of the pressure ulcers from leaving her upside down for maybe 18 hours, 20 hours more than they should. I mean, my daughter was abused in every way medically. She was tortured. She was overdosed with even Tylenol IV overdose. And this is 40 days of torture that my daughter went through in a New York hospital on Long Island. And if you look back at COVID, I said COVID was racist because COVID only took out certain people. Special needs, elderly, and the reason why they took out a lot of the special needs and elderly is because they know they wouldn't get representation. So this is why it's a miracle that I have Trisha, a woman of God, and I have Barry Silverman and Graham Bronstein. These are people that step up to the fight when nobody else did. So no one was helping me. Everybody slammed the phone down and said she has no money. This is not a case because they value Danielle's life based on the earnings. So because she was special needs and she was volunteering, that means there was no money to collect. So Danielle's case was not something that any attorney wanted. So I filed my case myself. I don't know how to file. I was not a lawyer, but I said, oh no, you're not going to get away with this. I am going to do whatever I can to keep my case alive. So I filed pro se. New York largest medical attorneys came back in, the ones they hired, the oldest and most expensive attorneys. They came in and they start filing motions, and I had no idea what to do. I'm crying, I'm screaming, I'm trying to file. I begged the judge to give me 90 days to find an attorney, and I called every single attorney you could think about, and no one took my case. So they were able now to come back in and say, okay, she doesn't have an attorney. She cannot represent her daughter. She could only represent herself. So I cannot represent my daughter's estate. And this is where, they got dismissed, a temporary dismissal based on the fact I don't have an attorney. I sued 44 individuals, including the hospitals. Everyone who harmed my daughter, touched her, injected her, override, everything they did. And it was so malicious, the medical records. It's the most horrific you ever seen. And so 38 got out. One is dead now. We have 5 more in who never responded. They just didn't care. They didn't even respond to the lawsuit. So that's why they're in. And by the grace of God, I've been writing on Substack and people have been reading my story. I was out there on Twitter, Facebook, begging for help. And that's how Sasha connected me to Graham, and Graham connected me to Trisha, and then Barry Silverman, and then Graham's wife connected me to you, Danny. So God works in mysterious ways. And I have representation now. And I'll let Trisha take it over from here.
And before Trisha starts, may you share your Substack and Twitter?
Oh, okay. My Substack is at Rebecca Charles, just at REBECCA Charles CHARLES. And my Twitter, I think it's R Charles 109. I have to make sure.
Okay, we'll share that.
All right, I'll come back with it. You could go on with Trisha now.
And Danielle is extremely fortunate, blessed to have you as a mother, even eternally, even now. You're fighting a fight that loved ones wish they did, but you have the gumption, you have the courage, and you have the will, the drive, and the purpose to do so. So thank you from every special needs child who needs this level of advocacy. Thank you.
R Charles 109. That's my Twitter handle.
Awesome. Yes. The exposure, the support, this is the most important thing that I'm gathering at this point. We're going through this process. It has been several years. Am I right on that?
Yes, since October 6th, 2021, I knew they killed her. I'm not supposed to say that word. I'm supposed to say alleged, but the medical records speak for themselves. I I went along and said we have to get the medical records right after she passed.
Right. And yeah, we're we're on the People's Healing Hour. All right. We're not in the court of law. We're gonna say what it is, how we feel, what our experiences are, in the most authentic way. All right.
And
Beautiful
quickly
thing.
for
Yeah.
clarity, you said they did engage with dad. Was it just the staff downstairs to bring up the belongings, or did the hospital, like the medical professionals, at any point ever try to ask dad anything? Or they just barred you and said, let's separate Danielle from.
Was the intention. The intention was to separate me because I was holding them back from putting her on a ventilator. And that's where the money came in. You know, they got incentivized to do this by our government. It was incentivized. And once you use remdesivir, CMS pays above the bill 20%. So Danielle had private medical insurance, Cigna PPO. They billed Cigna PPO with $648,000 for cost. I don't know how much you bill yet. We have to subpoena those records, and this is why we're reaching out for help, for people to help, because Trisha's a single attorney, Barry's a single attorney, Graham is a single attorney. They're not huge law firms, but they have how do you say, the integrity to stand up and say this is wrong, and I am going to help. And we're here to ask people because it wasn't just my child. I don't have any more children. I say I could just walk away and live my life, but my conscience will not let me do that because not only I have to fight for my daughter, they murdered her. I have to fight to let people know that they could be walking into a death chamber, to be tortured the last days of your living life, to be tortured, tied to a bed and drugged and overdosed. My daughter never not have a meal, and to read the medical record that says she was malnourished. I mean, I couldn't even eat. I was vomiting. I was like, how could they do that? My daughter always had the best of food to eat.
I mean, her first day she had lamb chops. That goes to show quality of life.
The hospital that Monday night gave us lamb chops. But I mean, Danielle was she was off of gluten since she was 8 years old, no sugars, no junk food. You know, once in a while she'll get, you know, a chicken nugget, but from a very good restaurant. But otherwise, Danielle was very healthy. Hardly ever got sick. 2020 never got sick, but she got sick from her aide. They went to chiropractor and then to the acupuncturist, and the aide had a fever, and she took her into the room with her and spent over an hour, and then drove home another hour. And Danielle loves to hug and kiss, and that's how Danielle got sick.
Understood.
Wow. This is a very heavy topic. Discussing on the People's Healing Hour this morning, this Wellness Wednesday on 90.3 FM radio, the voice of Harlem, sharing Danielle's story, having an opportunity to hear from a very, very dedicated and fierce mother, Rebecca. You speak on behalf of not just Danielle, but so many other children that and parents of children that just didn't have a voice or understanding of what should be done, could be done, and have the gumption, to find assistance and never quit, never look the other way. Um,
Medicine as an institution is difficult to navigate.
yes.
So I can imagine the uphill battle this is, the up mountain battle.
And we're happy, to be here to at least hear the story and share the story across the broadband and get it out to the people so people can hear and support and reach out and know that we have incredible, good-hearted attorneys that are still here, like Trisha, like Graham. Um, I have a question for you, Trisha. When you heard this story, how did you get in contact? What was the next steps for you? Oh, no, no worries. Yeah, I was asking. So you heard this story. How did you hear about it? And then what were the steps that you had to take on your side?
To be honest with you, I was contacted by Graham Brownstein, and he's the one who contacted. He actually contacted a colleague of mine um, to get in touch with me, so that he could present the case to me in hopes that I would take it. And so when my colleague um, contacted me, I spoke with, and that would be Kevin Jenkins, when he said that he had a case that he wanted to talk to me about. And he was approached by Graham, and they needed an attorney. He kind of described the case to me, and I knew that if Kevin brought the case to me and asked me to take it, that it had to have been meaningful. So I heard about it, told him I would consider it. I was inundated because, as Rebecca said, I am a solo practitioner. And to be honest with you, I was inundated at the time and wanted to say no, but after I had a brief description, I said, okay, I would meet with Graham and, just hear him out and, get some more details on the case. And once I spoke with him, it was just obvious, what had taken place. And I was, up front and center during COVID, during the times of, from COVID, from the beginning through, the vaccines and things of that nature and all the mandates. And so after hearing what had taken place, I was fully aware of the protocols that the hospitals were operating under and things that were going on in the hospitals. But this was the most egregious case I had heard. And so I just couldn't say no, pretty much. And that's all I can tell you. I just couldn't say no because I immediately saw that it was murder. Even outside of looking at the medical records, I said this was likely murder. They likely operated under the protocols and the incentives that they were getting, that the hospitals were getting. I knew that Northwell was a major issue during COVID because I had a number of clients that were in Northwell, that we really had to advocate for their family members that were there, being subjected to, different medical procedures and, the ventilators and things of that nature. And they didn't want them to, other people that were barred out, while family members were kept in the hospital. So I had had enough, I guess, experience with Northwell at that point that I could see or anticipate what I would learn about the case as I looked in the medical records. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take the case and we'll just, try to fight this as much as possible because I know that Northwell has they have a treasure chest, right? They have attorneys um, in there. They have a massive army of attorneys, right? They have the money that to pay for attorneys, and so I said that we're going to fight them as much as possible because the truth is something that you can't hide. The truth will make its way to the surface, eventually. It's like a roaring lion. Once you start, you open up, you can't stop it. And so I said the truth will prevail, and we're just going to fight this as much as we can. And so that's what we're doing. So once Graham contacted me, and I learned about the case, the 38 defendants that were released from the case were released based upon procedural issue. It has nothing to do with the substance of the case, but it was really procedural, and that was because, as Rebecca stated, she was pro se, and as pro se, part of the estate, she could not represent the estate. and she had to get an attorney. And so um, once I was retained by her, that pretty much cured the procedural defect in the case. And so we immediately filed the motions to the court to re-argue or to vacate and things of that nature. We also, at this point, pending a motion to amend the complaint that's pending, and the court has pretty much bypassed that. But let me back up. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So the 38 defendants that were released on a procedural defect. Once I came in, that cured it. We immediately notified the court of that situation. However, there was the court order from December 2024 was pretty much still active, in effect to dismiss the defendant. However, the final judgment had not been placed on the record. So we filed a motion to amend the complaint, and we expanded it, expanded the claims, expanded the facts, because Rebecca did a good job, but she's not an attorney. And so once we amended the complaint, we expanded the facts. We added information that was not in the original complaint, which brought in additional claims and strengthened the lawsuit. The court, in essence, has ignored that our motion to amend, and they ruled on the proposed judgment that was filed by defense counsel, without ruling on our motion, and pretty much issued the final judgment, dismissing the 38 defendants. But while our motion to amend is still, to this day, still pending, the court still has not ruled on it. And so we thought that's irregular, very irregular. That's not how the court usually operates, and is not how the court is really supposed to operate. And so I've written correspondence to the judge to kind of like hope them to say, Your Honor, this is a bit irregular. You have not ruled on our motion to amend, yet you have entered judgment dismissing the 38 defendants, a final judgment dismissing the 38 defendants. We're waiting on a response from the judge and with regards to that. But in the meantime, to preserve our ability to bring in or vacate that dismissal, we have filed a notice of appeal in order to preserve that so that we can appeal it, and we have some time in which to do that. And so in the meantime, we're dealing with the judge that's currently on the case, in order so that we can avoid an appeal. But if they don't act, if the court doesn't act, and doesn't pretty much open up the judgment or vacate the judgment and rule on our motion to amend, then we will file our appellate brief. As well as we do have another mechanism that we can use to bring the 38 defendants back in as well. So even though there was a judgment that was issued dismissing the 38 defendants and just leaving the other 5, we have 2 other avenues that we can use in order to bring the 38 defendants back in. One is the appeal, and one is another mechanism that I don't really want to show our hand, but we have one that is a surefire way of bringing them back in. We're just trying to exhaust all other means in the meantime. So we're hoping that the court will rule on our motion to amend, and if not, then we will consider which of the other 2 to use, or we may just use the both of them. But one way or another, we will bring the 38 defendants back in, and this case will move forward, because it has to. There's no way that any jury is going to sit in a courtroom and hear this story and not see what took place. And I don't understand how any judge can read our complaint, especially the amended complaint, and read that document and not see the injustice and not understand that the case needs to move forward. And so that's where we are right now. So once Graham contacted us. That's what we did. We went ahead to try to contacted me. We moved ahead immediately to try to save the case, which an attorney entering pretty much does. And so now we're just dealing with the court, and it's a regular ruling, and it's a regular way of managing this case, which I think the court is really just trying to get rid of it to a certain degree. I don't know why. I have my opinion with regard to that, but I will reserve that. Um, we're just going to pretty much, you know, push, push the court to do what it's supposed to do, and to ensure that this case moves forward and adjudicate this on the merits and not dismiss it based upon procedure.
That seems like what is supposed to happen. But also, what has gone down during this COVID time was unprecedented on so many different levels. And holding them accountable for all the damages that have been done. I mean, I don't even know if it's appropriate for us to talk about corruption in the judgment system, but
in my mind, that's why I just keep saying medicine as an institution in the capitalist mode of production.
right.
If we can decipher that, then you understand where we're coming from.
There it is. We're not gonna put words in your mouth, Trisha, but we will talk about this as on the radio as what Wow, this was heavy.
Some method